Hello everyone and welcome back to Mr. and Mrs. Social Studies. I know we have a slightly different layout here. This is in our updated home office. Let us know in the comments below if this is a room you'd like to see more videos or if you like this background better than our more recent one. That being said, today we're talking about vocab activities that you can do with any set of vocab, even if you're not a social studies teacher. Teaching vocabulary can get a reputation for being a bit boring, but it certainly doesn't have to be that way, and there are a lot of different tools and strategies that teachers can use. Sometimes these things we have to actually design them with different topics and content in mind. So we do have a blog post I'll link below that shares some examples of that. But today we're talking about things that you don't actually really have to prep. The activities work for any set of vocabulary. And I want to share 5 of these different examples that you can use today and show you actually what they look like so you have an idea of how to move forward. As I share the different activities, there will be links below if you want to check any of them out further. Let's jump into my computer here. We're doing a screen share to show these different things. The first activity we'll talk about is the Frist Model. And this is a classic activity that can be helpful for students to think about a word in multiple ways. In the official Frist Model, there is a word in the middle, and there's both a definition, an image, and something that's an example of that and a non-example. So that's kind of like the official one. And it's set up really easy here. You would just type in any vocab words that you have. This can be a more time-consuming assignment, so we recommend not going overboard. Don't give your students a super large number of words if you don't plan on spending a couple days to do it. With this, there's also, so this is the official version of the Frist Model template, but we actually prefer this one, which is the official definition, which might be in the dictionary or maybe the one you're providing to your students or in the textbook. Then there's also a spot for definition in their own words for students to come up with their own personal definition in easier to understand terms or language. Then there's using an example sentence, typing out a sentence using the word in context. And of course, still the image or picture where a student can easily drag this in. I should also mention that all of the activities I'm showing today also have printable versions too. I'm just showing you the digital version since that's what looks better and you can get a better sense of it on camera that way. But like I said, they're linked below if you want a printable version instead. So that's the Frist Model template and can really be used with any set of vocab words. You switch out the words in the middle and you're good. Another example of a vocab activity are one-pager templates, which to be honest, one of my major regrets of my first years of teaching was not using these because there were so many lessons I was trying to work too hard, too last minute, scrambling something together, and the one-pager templates would have saved me multiple times and been probably a more effective lesson than what I ended up doing anyway. So the concept of a one-pager template, as you can see here, this is the digital version, but this one I think lends itself really well to paper and there's a lot more templates. The idea is that you are having students put together their vocab words with images or definitions or any other words and symbols that relate to that word. And you can decide how the student set it up. There's an example here with ancient Egypt if the student was just doing images and also like some symbols and the word without definitions, but there are also options that you can include definitions for. There's also a directions sheet as you see here and an example of a paper-based one where there are definitions written in. And especially if you're doing the paper-based version, you can let your students pick out the template that resonates most with them and allow them to really showcase their creativity and represent things how makes most sense to them. So definitely highly recommend, also linked below. The third vocab activity has to do with hexagonal thinking. Now this is not something that I invented. I've seen other teachers talk about it and use it. And I really like the idea in general, but I found the original version where you just give students a bunch of terms that are all in hexagon shapes and they have to match them up. I found that to be a bit too unstructured, at least at the middle school level in my own case. Definitely some students, could thrive doing it, but it was tougher for lower level students. And so we made kind of an alternative version that works a bit better and does provide a structure. Maybe it's even something that a student could use as a building block into the hexagonal thinking strategies others are using. it's easier for me just to show you. So if we take a look here, this is just a slideshow template, but the idea is, at least with the version we created, it almost looks like a little flower. So there is one designed to kind of get this flower petal idea more, but I know not everyone wants to use a flower petal. But here we can see, let's say the word was democracy. And any vocab word, especially more complex ones, there's often some nuance, or there's multiple different words that we think of, synonyms, connotations, words that are related to that main word. And so as you can see here, if the vocab word was democracy, some related words that can complete this flower shape, if you will, with hexagons, could include government, voting, people, representative, direct, ancient Greece. So those are just some examples of related words. Now, if we take a look at the template here is a bit more of an explanation. The way these slides are set up, they give students a chance to explain the connections they made. So for example, democracy is a type of government. So we've got that marked here. Voting, in a democracy, people vote on the issues or for others to represent them. That's explaining how it's related. People, due to voting, democracy is often seen as rule by the people for the people. That's how it's linked. Representative and direct democracy are both different types of democracy. And then ancient Greeks were the first to use democracy. So that's why ancient Greece is on here. So with this nice structure, it makes it easier for students to think about making connections, and also a very just straightforward way for them to explain it. You would type the vocab word here prior to assigning it to your students, and then the students would be able to type the words next to it, and in the boxes, wherever this text box is, they would type that out. And again, all these things today have printable versions too, but I'm just showing you the digital version. And this is definitely something that's really going to help your students tap into some higher order thinking. And by having to come up with these different related words, it does force students to dive deeper into their understanding of these vocabulary words. So I think it can be really helpful. If you're looking for something very simple, very straightforward, and let's say you're using vocabulary from the textbook, maybe you're just having students, as they read, make note of it somewhere. We've got a graphic organizer that's specifically to be used with vocabulary from a textbook or a reading passage or something like that. And it's super simple, very basic resource, but sometimes the basic stuff can be most helpful and just easy for both ourselves and students to use. In this activity, students will write out the vocabulary word, the definition after they look it up, and then related words that connect to this vocab word. So it's sort of getting into where that hexagonal thinking is, but a little bit more bare bones or straightforward. And with this, it's not too involved, but if you want students to pay more attention to vocabulary words as they're reading a section of the textbook or for a certain unit or activity, then this can be helpful. It's also very easy to change the number of boxes here. So currently there are 10 boxes, but if you wanted to add more boxes or delete some of the boxes, that's totally fine as well. Lastly, vocabulary games can be a lot of fun, especially as review or assessment. So we've got 3 different vocabulary games. They're all bundled together, but it can be a great way to do some review with your students in a more fun way. First, there's the vocabulary dice game. And in the vocabulary dice game, there's a little game board here on slide 2, and also printable version 2. I feel like the games do tend to work better in the printable version sometimes, but both technically do work. But quite simply, students will roll the dice, either an actual die if you've got them, or type in Google Dice or have your students do that, and it will do it for you. Super easy, especially if you're already using devices, which you probably are if you're doing the digital version. With that, each time or each round, students will roll the dice, and whatever they get for numbers here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they must complete the task if they want to be able to move based upon those game pieces. So for example, if I roll a 2, I have to use the word in a complete sentence, whatever the next word is that we're working on. And if I successfully completed it, I would move my game piece from start over to this green box. So it's a great way for them to review words, and it's a fun group activity. Or you could even play as a class with teams. That's also a good option. There's also a picture guessing game, similar to games like Pictionary. In this case, students will have them in small groups or even just pairs, and one student can draw a picture. Either a paper-based version is probably the easiest, or using the scribble tool here on like a Google slideshow. And other students will have to guess what those words are that they are illustrating. So got different game pieces here for player 1 and player 2. And then the last game opportunity is the password game. In the password game, this is where students have to really think, what is the most iconic word I could use to explain this vocabulary word? And they'll have to figure out what that one word is, say that word to their partner as the password, and their partner is trying to guess what that word is. You can also play this with the whole class and say a word and see if they can guess. If the person doesn't get it on the first try, then you give them a second clue or second password, and you just keep going until they guess it. Ideally, you guess it sooner rather than later, and you essentially earn more points if someone can guess it sooner. So these are all just fun different games and activities that you can try with any set of vocab. Hopefully you got to see a good look at these different examples, and maybe there are some you'd like to try in your own teaching. If so, they are all linked below, and if you really like all of them, they are in a money-saving bundle. You save 30% when you purchase them all together, and they go right to your Google Drive account, so it's super easy and ready for you to share with your students. Let us know any questions you have in the comments below, and go ahead and subscribe if you are new here. We do lots of different social studies and teacher tips videos. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Bye!